The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the backyard as Ella, a bright-eyed 12-year-old girl, darted through the grass, her laughter ringing like music in the warm summer air. "Max! Come here, boy," she called, her voice filled with pure excitement. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Max, the golden retriever who had been her constant companion since birth, bounded towards her, his fur shining in the fading light. At that moment, everything felt perfect. Their bond was unbreakable. They had grown up together, sharing countless adventures, cuddling through rainy days, and comforting each other through life's ups and downs. Today was a typical day for Ella and Max, filled with playful antics and endless joy. As Ella raced across the yard, her pigtails swinging wildly, she felt like the luckiest girl in the world. Max, with his long tail wagging furiously, chased after her, barking playfully as they engaged in their daily game of tag. Ella knew every inch of their home, from the towering oak tree where they built a fort to the garden patch where she loved to plant flowers. But now, all her attention was focused on Max. Suddenly, as Ella was about to reach the tree, she tripped over a small mound of dirt, landing hard on the grass. "Oof!" she exclaimed, the wind knocked out of her for a moment. As she looked up, slightly dazed, she saw Max stop dead in his tracks. His nose twitched as he sniffed the ground, curiosity overtaking their game. "What is it, boy?" Ella asked, her heart racing as she pushed herself up onto her elbows. Max had a habit of digging up interesting treasures, old bones, toys, or even odd rocks he seemed to think were precious. But this time, there was a seriousness to his digging that made Ella's heart skip a beat. Max began to dig furiously, his paws kicking dirt in every direction. Ella could see his excitement building, and she couldn't help but feel a thrill of curiosity. "What did you find?" she wondered aloud, crawling closer to watch. The excitement of discovering something new made her forget her earlier stumble. As the dirt flew, Ella reached out to touch Max's fluffy back, encouraging him to dig even deeper. "Come on, Max. What's in there?" she urged, her voice a mix of enthusiasm and wonder. Then, out of the dirt, something shiny caught Ella's eye, a glimmer of metal peeking through the soil. Her heart raced with curiosity. What could it be? Max continued to dig, and Ella's excitement turned to impatience. She gently pulled the golden retriever back, wanting to uncover whatever it was herself. With a few quick movements, she brushed away the dirt, revealing an old, rusted metal box, its corners rounded and its surface etched with signs of time and neglect. "Wow!" Ella gasped, her eyes wide as she stared at the mysterious object. "What do you think is inside?" she pondered, glancing at Max, who was now sitting back on his haunches, watching her with curious eyes. Ella felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. It was as if the box held secrets waiting to be discovered. With a mix of determination and wonder, she reached down and lifted the box, the weight of it surprising her. It was heavier than she had expected, and she could feel the excitement bubbling inside her as she wondered about the stories this box could tell. Setting it down on the grass, she noticed it was locked. A rusted padlock hung limply from one side, adding to the mystery of its contents. I wonder if I can get it open," she mused, biting her lip as she examined the lock. Perhaps her dad had a key somewhere, or maybe she could find a way to pry it open. The thought thrilled her, and she was determined to solve the puzzle. "Max, we need to find out what's inside," she exclaimed, glancing at her furry friend, who seemed equally invested in the unfolding adventure. Ella carefully set the box on her lap and began searching through her pockets for anything that might help her unlock the padlock. She pulled out a small hairpin and some change, but quickly realized those wouldn't work. "I'll just ask Dad," she finally decided, jumping to her feet. "He's always got tools around." She carefully set the box down again, brushing dirt from her shorts as she raced toward the house, calling back over her shoulder, "Stay here, Max. Don't go anywhere." Inside the house, the familiar sense of dinner wafted through the air, and Ella could hear the sounds of her parents talking in the kitchen. She dashed in, breathless with excitement. "Dad, can you help me with something?" Her father turned, wiping his hands on a dish towel, a curious look on his face. "Sure, honey. What do you need?" Ella gestured animatedly. "I found this old box in the yard that Max dug up. But it's locked, and I need a way to open it." Her father's expression shifted from curiosity to intrigue as he listened. "A locked box? That sounds interesting. Show me." He followed Ella back outside, where Max was still sitting patiently by the dirt mound, watching them intently. "Look." Ella pointed to the box, her voice bubbling over with excitement. "Isn't it cool?" Her dad knelt down, inspecting the box. "Wow, this does look old. Let's see if we can get it open." He rummaged through his tool belt and pulled out a small screwdriver. "Sometimes, you can pry these old locks open if they're rusty enough." Ella watched in awe as her father worked on the lock, feeling her anticipation grow. "What do you think is inside?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. "I'm not sure, but it could be anything, old letters, toys, or maybe even some treasure," he replied, a playful glint in his eye. As he fiddled with the lock, a sudden thought crossed Ella's mind. What if it belonged to someone who lived here before us? What if it has a story? Her dad smiled, encouraging her imagination. "That's a great thought, Ella. Every object has a story, especially something that's been buried like this. You never know what you might uncover." After a few moments of careful work, the lock clicked open. Ella's heart raced as her father lifted the lid. "All right, let's see what we've got," he said, pulling the box open slowly. Inside lay an assortment of items, a faded collar, a bundle of yellowed letters, and a small framed photograph. Ella gasped as she recognized the image of a young girl with a golden retriever that looked just like Mac's dad. "Look," she exclaimed, pointing at the photo. "This dog looks just like him." Her father studied the photo, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "It does, doesn't it? This must be from a long time ago." Ella felt a strange connection to the photograph, a sense of history swirling around her. "Who do you think they are?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure, but it seems like this dog was loved very much," he said, carefully picking up the letters. "Let's read some of these." As they sifted through the contents, Ella's excitement mixed with curiosity. She wondered about the girl in the photograph and the life the dog had led before finding its way to her family. This was no ordinary find, it was a glimpse into a past she never knew existed. Each letter revealed snippets of life, stories of adventures, love, and heartache. Ella's eyes widened as she realized how important this box was, filled with memories that had been hidden for years. The connection between Max and the girl deepened, and she felt a rush of empathy for the family that had once loved him. "Do you think this is why Max acts differently sometimes?" she pondered aloud, glancing at her father. "Maybe he misses them." Her father nodded thoughtfully. "It's possible. Dogs can have strong memories, and sometimes they might feel the loss of their previous owners." Ella's heart ached for Max, realizing that while he was happy with her, there might still be a part of him that remembered his first family. The thought gave her a new perspective on their bond. This wasn't just about a dog, it was about love and loss, history and hope. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the backyard, Ella took a deep breath. "I want to know more about them. What if we can find the girl from the photo?" she said, her mind racing with ideas. Her father smiled at her enthusiasm. "That sounds like a wonderful adventure. We can start by looking for clues in the letters. Maybe there's a name or a place we can track down." Ella felt a surge of excitement. This discovery had opened up a world of possibilities, and she was determined to uncover the story behind Max's past. As they continued to read through the letters, she knew this was just the beginning of a new adventure, one that would bring them closer together and deepen the bond they shared with their beloved dog. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. The weight of the box rested heavily in Ella's lap, but it felt light with promise. This was not just a forgotten piece of history, it was a bridge to the past and a way to honor the love that had once surrounded Max. And as she looked at her father, she knew they were in this together. The sun dipped below the horizon, and a sense of calm washed over them. Ella could feel that whatever lay ahead, they would uncover it as a family. With newfound determination, she set her sights on the mystery that awaited them, ready to dive into the history that had long been buried but was now waiting to be brought to light. The sun shone brightly as the scene shifted from the present to a series of cherished memories that played out in Ella's mind. From the moment she took her first steps, Max was there. His soft golden fur glistened in the sunlight, and his warm brown eyes sparkled with love and loyalty. Ella could hardly remember a time when he wasn't by her side. As a toddler, she would giggle and chase after him in the backyard, her laughter echoing through the air like sweet music. Max, ever patient, would let her catch up before playfully nudging her with his nose, encouraging her to keep running. Those were the days filled with innocence and joy, where the world seemed vast and full of possibilities. Ella's parents had brought Max home when she was just a baby. "He's your protector," her mother had said with a smile, placing the tiny puppy gently in her arms. At first, Ella didn't understand. But as she grew, she realized that Max was more than just a dog, he was her best friend. They shared countless adventures, exploring the neighborhood, running through sprinklers on hot summer days, and snuggling together on chilly nights. Ella often whispered her secrets to Max, her confidant, as he lay beside her on her bed, listening attentively. Max was not just a pet, he was family. He had been there for every milestone, every birthday celebration. On her 5th birthday, Ella received a pink bicycle, and Max was right there, barking excitedly as she pedaled around the driveway for the first time. When she fell and scraped her knee, it was Max who gently nudged her, encouraging her to get back up and try again. He had an uncanny ability to sense her emotions, always there with a wagging tail and a comforting nuzzle whenever she felt sad or scared. As Ella approached her school years, their bond only deepened. In kindergarten, when Ella was nervous about her first day of school, she whispered to Max, "What if they don't like me?" With his head resting on her lap, he seemed to understand. When she returned home that day, her cheeks flushed with excitement, she exclaimed, "I made friends, Max." "Just like you said." Max wagged his tail in approval, as if he had been cheering her on from the sidelines all along. But the innocence of childhood eventually gave way to the complexities of growing up. By the time she turned 11, Ella began to notice changes in Max. He was still playful, but his energy had started to dwindle. He slept more, and his once glimmering coat wasn't as shiny as it used to be. Ella would often find him lying in the sun, eyes closed, breathing softly. She felt a sense of unease at these changes, but pushed her worries aside, hoping that it was just a phase. Ella's parents tried to reassure her. "Max is getting older, sweetie." "It's natural," her father would say, scratching Max behind the ears. "He'll always be your best friend, no matter how old he gets." But Ella's heart ached at the thought of losing him. They had shared a life filled with joy, and she couldn't imagine her world without him. Tension began to build as Ella grappled with her fears. The thought of losing Max was unbearable, and she often found herself sitting with him on the porch, whispering her hopes and dreams into his floppy ears. "I'll always love you, Max," she would say, tears brimming in her eyes. It was as if she knew that every moment they shared was precious, each one a memory she would hold on to forever. One afternoon, while rummaging through a box of old toys in the attic, Ella stumbled upon a faded photo album. Curious, she brought it down to the living room, eager to revisit the memories contained within. As she flipped through the pages, she saw snapshots of her life, birthdays, family vacations, and countless moments with Max. One photograph caught her eye, Max as a puppy, his ears flopping and a goofy grin plastered on his face. She couldn't help but smile, remembering how small he had once been, how full of life he had been. Suddenly, a thought struck her. What if there were more memories to uncover? Ella decided to ask her parents about Max's past. "Mom, Dad," she began one evening, "can you tell me how you found Max? Was he always with us?" Her parents exchanged glances, and her mother sighed, setting down her cup of tea. "Oh, sweetheart, Max has a history. We adopted him from a family who could no longer keep him. They loved him dearly, but circumstances changed for them. But what circumstances? Ella pressed, intrigued. Was he sad to leave them? Her father scratched his head, seemingly at a loss for words. It was a tough situation. They had to move to a place that didn't allow pets. They felt it was best for Max to find a new home. Ella's heart sank at the thought of Max being uprooted. Did they love him? She asked quietly, feeling a knot form in her stomach. They did, her mother replied gently. But sometimes life doesn't work out the way we want it to. That night, as Ella lay in bed, she felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. The idea of Max being left behind haunted her, making her wonder if he had ever missed his previous family. She glanced at Max, who was curled up at the foot of her bed, and whispered, "Did you want to go back to them, Max? Do you ever think about them?" The dog merely opened one eye, as if to reassure her that he was happy where he was. But deep down, Ella couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Max's story. What if there were things about his past that she didn't know? What if there were secrets buried alongside the memories they had made together? As days turned into weeks, Ella became more observant of Max's behavior. He still loved their games, but sometimes he would sit by the window, staring outside as if lost in thought. The sight tugged at her heartstrings. Could he be longing for something, or someone, from his past? Determined to understand, Ella resolved to dig deeper into Max's history. She began researching local animal shelters and adoption agencies, looking for any records of Max's previous family. With the help of her parents, she discovered the name of the family who had given him up. This could be it, Ella exclaimed one day, holding a piece of paper with the family's name and address. I want to find them. Maybe they'd want to see him again. Her parents exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond. That could be a good idea, but it might also be difficult, her mother cautioned. They may not be ready to revisit those memories. But Ella felt a strong pull to reach out. She wrote a heartfelt letter, explaining how much Max meant to her and how he had been a part of their family for all these years. With her parents' help, she addressed the letter and slipped it into an envelope, her heart racing with excitement. I'll send it tomorrow, she declared, feeling a spark of hope. This could lead to answers, to connections she hadn't even considered. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Ella's mind swirled with questions and possibilities. What if the family wanted to see Max? What if they had stories to share? She imagined a reunion filled with laughter and joy, a chance for Max to reconnect with his past. But there was also fear lurking in the corners of her mind. What if they didn't want to see him? What if it opened wounds that were better left closed? Ella pushed those thoughts aside, determined to focus on the potential for love and connection. As the days passed, Ella felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She checked the mailbox every day, hoping for a response. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a letter arrived. Her heart raced as she ripped it open, the words dancing before her eyes. Dear Ella, it began. Thank you for reaching out to us. We've thought about Max often, and we would love to hear more about him. If it's okay with you, we would like to arrange a visit. Ella's heart soared, her dreams becoming a reality. They wanted to see Max. She could hardly contain her excitement. With her parents' help, they set a date for the reunion, and as the day approached, she could hardly sleep. This was it. The moment she had hoped for was finally coming, and she couldn't wait to see the joy on Max's face when he reunited with his past. The tension had built for weeks, and now, as the day arrived, all she could feel was hope for the future. As Ella knelt in the grass, staring at the rusty box Max had unearthed, an unsettling feeling washed over her. The sunlight flickered through the leaves overhead, casting dappled shadows on her face, but all she could focus on was the strange weight of the moment. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and traced the outline of the box with her fingertips. It looked old, like it had been buried for years, and the mystery of what lay inside sent a shiver down her spine. Max, with his golden fur now tinged with gray, sat beside her, his eyes keenly focused on her every move. "What did you find, boy?" she murmured, glancing at him. Max wagged his tail, his ears perked up, seemingly excited by the discovery. Ella couldn't shake the feeling that this box held secrets about Max's past, secrets that might explain the odd moments she had noticed lately. In the days leading up to this moment, she had observed changes in Max's behavior. He had become more withdrawn, often gazing longingly toward the fence as if remembering something just out of reach. Their playful afternoons seemed tinged with a bittersweet note, as though he sensed that time was slipping away from them. It troubled Ella, who had never known life without Max. He had been her faithful companion through every scraped knee and childhood nightmare, and the thought of losing him was unbearable. "Maybe you're just getting old," Ella whispered, scratching behind his ears, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. Max was not just a dog, he was a member of the family. They shared a bond that transcended words, and the idea of something troubling him felt like a weight pressing on her heart. Determined to learn more, she carefully opened the box, revealing its contents piece by piece. The first thing she pulled out was a worn collar, slightly frayed at the edges but still intact. It was adorned with a shiny name tag that read Buddy. Ella's breath hitched. "Buddy," she echoed softly. The name felt strange, almost foreign, and she could not recall Max ever being called that. She glanced over at Max, who seemed to sense her confusion. He looked back at her with wide, soulful eyes, as if urging her to continue her search. As Ella dug deeper into the box, her fingers brushed against the surface of several faded photographs. She carefully lifted them out, noticing that they depicted a happy family, a boy with bright eyes, a golden retriever, and a house that looked remarkably similar to hers. The boy and the dog, who she instinctively knew was Max, appeared full of life, frozen in a moment of joy. "Max, who are these people?" she wondered aloud, her heart racing with curiosity. "Were you really called Buddy?" A wave of questions flooded her mind. Who were they? Where had they gone? Why had Max ended up with her family instead? The last item in the box was a letter, crumpled and yellowed with age. With careful hands, Ella unfolded it, her heart pounding in anticipation. The neat, childlike handwriting was unmistakable, and as she began to read, the words brought her back to a time long gone. The letter was from the boy in the photographs. "Dear Buddy," it began. "I miss you every day. Mom and Dad say we have to move, but I don't want to leave you behind. You're my best friend, and I hope you find a new home that loves you as much as we do. Please don't forget me." Tears pricked at Ella's eyes as she absorbed the words. The boy had loved Max deeply, and the thought of him having to leave his beloved dog broke her heart. She could feel the weight of that loss, the sorrow that came from parting with someone so special. "I'm sorry, Max," she whispered, her heart aching for the pain he must have felt when his first family left him. As she finished reading, Ella looked over at Max, who seemed to sense her emotional turmoil. He nuzzled her gently, and in that moment, she understood that their connection was more profound than she had ever realized. He hadn't just been her dog, he had been a friend to another child, a beloved pet who had endured the heartache of being abandoned. Ella felt a surge of determination as she contemplated what this meant for her relationship with Max. "Max, I promise you," she declared, looking him straight in the eyes. "You'll never have to feel that way again. I will always take care of you." She hugged him tightly, and Max responded by licking her cheek, his way of reassuring her that he was happy and safe. But the discovery stirred a mix of emotions within Ella. She couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to find out what had happened to the family in the photographs. Why had they moved away? Did they ever think about Max? The questions gnawed at her, igniting a desire to uncover the truth behind the dog she loved so dearly. With newfound determination, Ella jumped to her feet, the box and its contents still clutched in her hands. "I need to know more," she declared, her voice firm with resolve. "We have to find out what happened to your first family." Max tilted his head, as if he understood every word, and his eyes sparkled with loyalty. That night, as Ella lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the letter. The boy's pain echoed in her mind, and the thought of Max waiting for his first owner made her heart ache. What if they want him back? She whispered into the darkness. The idea lingered, casting a shadow over her heart. But even in her uncertainty, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Max's past would lead her to answers that could bring closure for everyone involved. She envisioned reaching out to the family, telling them about Max's new life with her and how much he meant to her. Maybe they'd be happy to know he's loved, she thought. The next day, Ella set out on her mission. She began her search online, hoping to find any clues about the family. With a laptop perched on her knees, she scoured social media, public records, and local community boards. Hours turned into days, and as she dug deeper, she uncovered bits of information that led her closer to the truth. Finally, after days of searching, Ella stumbled upon an old news article featuring a family who had moved away a few years ago. It mentioned a boy named Jake and his golden retriever, Buddy. Heart racing, she scanned the article, which detailed how they had to leave town for a job opportunity and how they had found a loving home for Buddy with a family in the area. The last line struck Ella like a bolt of lightning. The family hopes Buddy is happy and thriving in his new home. Ella's heart soared. She had found them. But there was still so much more to do. She quickly copied down the family's old address and the details of their last known location. Her determination intensified, and she felt a sense of urgency. She had to reach out to them. That afternoon, Ella decided to write a letter of her own, introducing herself and sharing Max's story. She poured her heart into the letter, explaining how Max had become a part of her family and how much joy he brought into her life. She included the photographs she found, hoping to connect the dots and reunite Max with his past. With the letter sealed in an envelope, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. What if they want to take him back, she thought, worry creeping in. But then she remembered the bond she shared with Max. He had been her protector, her confidant, and her best friend. No one could take that away. Over the next few days, Ella waited impatiently for a response. Every time the mailman arrived, her heart raced with hope. Finally, one sunny afternoon, the moment arrived. She spotted a familiar envelope in the mailbox, addressed in neat handwriting. With trembling hands, she ripped it open and unfolded the letter inside. "Dear Ella," it began. "We are so happy to hear from you. Buddy, as we still call him, has always held a special place in our hearts. We often talk about him and wonder how he is doing. We miss him dearly." Tears streamed down Ella's cheeks as she read on. The letter detailed how Jake had grown up and often reminisced about the time they had shared with Buddy. "We'd love to hear more about him and see pictures. Thank you for caring for our beloved dog. It means the world to us." The warmth of the letter filled Ella with joy. She quickly penned a response, sharing stories of Max's antics, his adventures, and how he had become a beloved member of her family. She expressed their deep bond and reassured them that Max was happy and loved. As she sealed the envelope, Ella felt a wave of excitement wash over her. This was just the beginning of something incredible, a bridge connecting two families through a dog who had left paw prints on their hearts. Days turned into weeks, and the correspondence continued. Jake's family shared more about their life, their memories of Max, and their dreams of reconnecting. Ella learned that they lived a few towns over and had been considering a visit. Finally, after months of communication, they agreed to meet. "I can't wait for you to see Max," Ella told her parents, her excitement bubbling over. They helped plan a special day, inviting Jake's family over for a reunion. On the day of the meeting, Ella felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. She had prepared a backyard picnic, complete with treats for everyone, including Max's favorite snacks. When the doorbell rang, she could hardly contain her excitement. As she opened the door, there stood Jake, now a teenager with bright eyes and a wide smile. Next to him were his parents, their faces filled with hope and curiosity. "Is this where Buddy lives now?" Jake asked, looking around eagerly. Ella nodded, her heart racing. "Come in. Max will be so happy to see you." The moment Jake spotted Max, he dropped to his knees, and the golden retriever bounded towards him, barking joyfully. They were reunited at last. Ella watched with tears in her eyes as Jake and Max embraced, the connection between them undeniable. As the afternoon unfolded, stories were shared, laughter echoed, and memories were created. Max was the center of attention, happily running between Ella and Jake, reveling in the love surrounding him. Ella felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. This reunion wasn't just about a dog, it was about connection, love, and the deep bonds that can endure through time and distance. The day ended with promises to stay in touch, knowing that their families had intertwined through the love of a single, loyal dog. In that moment, Ella realized that while Max had a history before her, it was their present and future that mattered most. Together, they would continue to create memories, solidifying a bond that would last a lifetime. Ella rushed into the house, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The letter and the collar were clutched tightly in her small hands, and her mind raced with questions. What had she just discovered about Max? Who was this little girl who had loved him before? Ella needed answers, and she needed her parents to help her unravel the mystery surrounding her beloved dog. Mom! Dad, she called out as she burst into the living room, where her parents were sitting on the couch, their expressions shifting from casual conversation to concern at the sight of their daughter's urgency. You have to listen to me. I found something amazing in the backyard. Her mother looked up, eyebrows raised in curiosity. What is it, sweetie? Ella took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I found this old box that Max dug up, and inside it was a letter and a collar. She rushed over to the coffee table and set the items down, her fingers trembling with excitement as she unfolded the letter and held it up for her parents to see. What kind of letter? Her father asked, leaning forward, intrigued. It's from a girl who used to own Max. She wrote about how much she loved him and how she had to move away, Ella explained, her voice filled with urgency. She said she always hoped he was okay. Can you believe it? Her parents exchanged glances, a mixture of surprise and concern washing over their faces. Where did you find this? Her mother asked, her tone serious now. In the garden. I think Max was trying to tell me something by digging it up, Ella said, her heart racing. She had always felt a special bond with Max, but this discovery made it feel even deeper, like there was a hidden part of his story she had never known. Her father sighed, clearly processing the information. Ella, this is significant. But it also brings up some things we need to discuss about Max's past. What do you mean? Ella asked, feeling a pang of apprehension. Her mother took a deep breath and gestured for them to sit down. When we adopted Max, we knew he had a previous family. They had to give him up, and it was a very hard decision for them. They loved him a lot. Ella's heart sank a little at the thought of Max being loved by someone else. Why didn't you tell me this before? We didn't want you to feel sad about it, especially since Max has been such an important part of our lives. We wanted to focus on the family we've created together, her father explained gently. But now that you've found this letter, it's time to share the whole story with you. Ella sat in silence, her mind swirling with thoughts. Max had a life before her, a family that had to let him go. But he had also found his way to her, and that mattered most. So, what do we do now? She asked, her voice steadying. Her mother picked up the collar from the table, examining it with care. We need to find out more about this family. Maybe they want to hear about Max, too. This could be a chance for all of us to connect. Ella felt a spark of hope. Can we write to them? I want them to know that Max is happy and loved. That's a great idea, Ella, her father agreed. We can help you draft a letter. But first, we need to try to find out where they went and how to contact them. Ella's excitement bubbled over again. I want to know everything. I want to know what they're like and if they still think about him. Her parents nodded, understanding her eagerness. They had always encouraged her curiosity and her desire to connect with others. As they gathered around the kitchen table, Ella pulled out a notebook, ready to take notes. What do we need to know? She asked, her pen poised over the paper. Let's start with the letter, her mother said, retrieving it from the table. We should see if there are any clues about where this family might have moved. Look for names, addresses, anything that could help us. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Together, they studied the letter closely. Ella's heart raced as she read the heartfelt words of the girl who had once loved Max. The letter was filled with emotions, recounting playful memories and moments of joy that echoed Ella's own experiences with Max. I can feel how much she loved him, Ella said softly, her voice filled with empathy. It must have been hard for her to leave. It would be hard for anyone, her father replied. But it shows how much Max meant to her. And he still means a lot to you. They noticed the girl had signed her name at the end of the letter, Lila Anderson. Ella scribbled it down, determined to track her down. If we can find Lila, we can reach out to her, she suggested, her eyes shining with excitement. Let's see if we can find any records of the Andersons, her mother proposed. We could search online for their names. There might be some leads about where they went after moving. They spent the next hour searching online, combing through public records, and looking at social media. They found a few mentions of the Anderson family, but nothing concrete. Frustration began to creep in as they realized how difficult it might be to locate them. Maybe we should visit the neighborhood where they lived, Ella suggested suddenly. We can ask people if they remember them. That's a great idea, her father replied, visibly energized. Sometimes, personal connections are the best way to uncover information. With renewed determination, they made a plan to visit the neighborhood the next weekend. Ella felt a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. The idea of meeting Lila and connecting their families was exhilarating. She could imagine how happy Max would be to see someone from his past, a piece of his history that would bridge the gap between their lives. Over the following days, Ella couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation. She continued to bond with Max, showering him with affection, knowing that their time together was precious. They spent hours playing fetch and going on long walks, soaking up the summer sun. With each passing day, Ella felt more committed to discovering Max's history. Finally, the day of the visit arrived. Ella and her parents drove to the neighborhood where the Andersons had lived. As they parked the car, Ella looked around, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. She could feel the weight of the moment, the potential for new connections and memories. They walked down the familiar streets, where Ella had imagined Max playing fetch with Lila in the grass, laughing and having fun. She spotted a few neighbors outside, chatting and enjoying the sunny day. Mustering her courage, she approached a woman tending to her garden. "Excuse me," Ella began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I'm looking for a girl named Lila Anderson. She used to live here a long time ago, and I think she used to have a dog named Max." The woman looked up, a hint of recognition flickering in her eyes. "Lila? Yes, I remember her. They moved a few years ago to the next town over. I believe she might still be in that area." Ella's heart soared. "Do you know how I could find her?" The woman smiled warmly, clearly happy to help. "Let me think. I believe Lila's family opened a bakery in their new town. It's called Anderson's Sweets. You might try looking there." "Thank you so much," Ella exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. She couldn't believe how close she was to finding Lila. With the new lead, they quickly got back into the car and headed toward the bakery. Ella felt a mix of joy and nerves. What would Lila be like? Would she remember Max? As they drove, Ella imagined the reunion, her heart racing at the thought of connecting two important parts of her life. When they finally arrived at Anderson's Sweets, the smell of fresh pastries wafted through the air. Ella's mouth watered at the sight of colorful cupcakes and beautifully decorated cookies in the window display. But more importantly, she was here to find Lila. With her parents at her side, Ella stepped inside the bakery, her heart racing with excitement. A bell jingled above them as they entered, and a warm atmosphere enveloped them. Behind the counter stood a young woman, her hair tied back with a bright apron on, bustling about and arranging treats. "Excuse me," Ella called out, her voice filled with anticipation. "Are you Lila Anderson?" The woman turned, a hint of confusion on her face. "That's me. Can I help you?" Ella took a deep breath. "I'm Ella, and I grew up next to your dog, Max. I found a letter you wrote to him." Lila's eyes widened, and a smile spread across her face. "Max? I can't believe it. I've missed him so much." Ella felt her heart swell at Lila's reaction. "He's doing great. I wanted you to know that he's been loved and taken care of. I found your letter in the backyard, and it made me want to find you." Lila's expression turned reflective. "That letter was from so long ago. I always wondered what happened to him after we moved. I hoped he found a good home." "He did," Ella replied, excitement dancing in her eyes. "He's with my family now, and we love him just as much as you did." The two girls connected over their shared love for Max, and in that moment, it felt as if the years of separation melted away. They began to share stories about their experiences with him, laughing over silly moments and cherished memories. As they chatted, Ella realized how special this connection was. The bond between her, Lila, and Max had come full circle, bringing together their past and present. With a newfound friendship blossoming, Ella invited Lila to visit their home and see Max. "He would love to see you again," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "I would love that," Lila replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Let's make it happen." As they exchanged contact information, Ella felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. Not only had she unraveled the mystery of Max's past, but she had also built a bridge to Lila, creating a bond that honored both their histories. Leaving the bakery, Ella couldn't help but smile. The day had turned out to be more than she had ever hoped for. She knew that their adventure was just beginning, and that Max's story had brought them all together in a beautiful way. With renewed determination, Ella looked forward to the future, ready to embrace the connections that would continue to grow. The mystery of Max had been unraveled, and now it was time to celebrate the love that had always surrounded him. The days following the emotional revelation about Max weighed heavily on Ella's heart. The collar, the faded photographs, and the heartfelt letter had stirred a mixture of emotions within her: sadness for the family who had loved Max and joy for the bond she shared with him. Now, she felt a burning desire to uncover more about Max's past. She needed to know who he had once belonged to and what memories he might still hold from that time. One sunny afternoon, while sitting at her desk with a notepad in front of her, Ella set her mind to work. She recalled snippets of information her parents had mentioned in the past about Max's former family. There was a name, something like the Hendersons, that echoed in her mind. They had lived nearby before moving away, and her parents had spoken fondly of them. She needed to find a way to connect with them. Ella pulled out her laptop and opened a search engine, her fingers trembling with excitement. What if she could reach out to them? What if they wanted to hear about Max and how much he was loved? The thought of reuniting Max with his old family sent a thrill through her. The first step was to find out if they were still living in the area. She typed in Henderson family along with their old neighborhood name. After a few clicks, she came across a local community page that listed residents and their contact information. Ella's heart raced as she scrolled through the names, feeling a mix of hope and anxiety. Would she find them? Would they remember Max? Suddenly, she spotted a familiar name. Henderson. There it is! Ella exclaimed, nearly jumping out of her chair. She copied the email address listed, her hands shaking with anticipation. This was her chance. Sitting down with a blank document, she started to write. "Dear Henderson family," she typed, pausing to gather her thoughts. She wanted to convey everything: the love Max had brought to their lives and the connection they still shared. As she wrote, her mind swirled with images of Max's playful spirit and the joy he had brought to her own family. "I hope this message finds you well," she continued. "My name is Ella, and I'm writing to you because I've grown up next to Max, your beloved golden retriever. He's been my best friend since I was born, and I want to share something special with you. She poured her heart into the email, explaining how she had discovered the collar and the letter, recounting the joy Max had brought to her life. She hesitated at the end, feeling nervous about what to say next. Should she invite them to meet Max? What if they didn't want to? Taking a deep breath, she typed, "I would love for you to come and see him. He is happy and healthy, and I think it would mean a lot to both him and you." Once she finished the email, Ella reread it several times, ensuring her words expressed her sincerity. After one final glance, she hit send, her heart racing. Now, all she could do was wait. In the days that followed, Ella found herself glancing at her email constantly, hoping for a reply. Each time a notification popped up, her heart leapt, only to fall when it was a reminder or junk mail. Despite her impatience, she understood that reaching out to the Henderson family might take time. They had their own lives to navigate, especially after having left Max behind. Meanwhile, Ella tried to keep herself occupied, spending extra time with Max. They went for walks in the park, played fetch in the backyard, and shared quiet moments together. Every wag of Max's tail reminded her of the joy they brought each other, and she felt grateful for the bond they shared. But the lingering thoughts of his past tugged at her mind, making her eager for answers. Then, one fateful evening, after dinner, she heard her phone ping. Racing to the living room, she snatched it up and stared at the screen. Email from Henderson family flashed in bold letters. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it, barely able to breathe. "Dear Ella," the email began. "Thank you for reaching out to us. We are so glad to hear that Max is doing well and that he has brought joy to your life. He was a very special part of our family, and we think of him often." Ella felt a rush of emotions as she read their words. They had thought about Max. The connection felt stronger than ever. The email continued, "We would love to meet you and Max again. Could we come by this Saturday?" A grin spread across her face as she jumped up and down, barely containing her excitement. "Yes. Yes," she squealed, running to find her parents. They needed to know about the reply. "Mom. Dad," she called, bursting into the living room where they were watching TV. "You won't believe it. The Hendersons want to meet us and Max this Saturday." Her parents looked at each other, their expressions a mix of surprise and joy. "That's wonderful news, Ella," her mom said, beaming with pride. "You've really brought this full circle." They quickly began making preparations for the reunion. Ella wanted everything to be perfect. She and her mom cleaned the backyard, trimming the bushes and setting up chairs for everyone to sit. They even baked dog treats for Max, wanting him to feel extra special on this big day. As Saturday approached, the excitement in the household was palpable. Ella could hardly sleep the night before, tossing and turning as her mind raced with anticipation. She envisioned the moment when the Henderson family would arrive and how Max would react to seeing them again. Finally, Saturday arrived. Ella woke up early, her heart pounding with excitement. After a quick breakfast, she took Max for a walk, allowing him to explore every inch of the neighborhood. "Today is a big day, buddy," she said, scratching his ears. "You're going to see your old family." Once they returned home, Ella could hardly sit still. The hours dragged on as they waited for the Hendersons. She kept checking the time, feeling as if each second was an eternity. But finally, just as the sun began to dip low in the sky, she spotted a familiar car pulling into the driveway. Her heart leaped as she rushed to the door, throwing it open. The Henderson family stepped out, their faces lighting up as they caught sight of her. Ella, the young girl from the photos, exclaimed, stepping forward. "It's so good to see you." "Hi. I'm so glad you could make it," Ella responded, smiling wide. As they approached, Max caught the scent of his old family. He started barking excitedly, running towards them. The moment the Hendersons reached him, he leaped into their arms, licking their faces and wagging his tail furiously. Tears filled the young girl's eyes as she hugged Max tightly. "I missed you so much," she cried, clearly overwhelmed with emotion. Seeing the reunion unfold filled Ella with joy. This was what she had hoped for, the happiness of both Max and his former family. "I'm so glad you're all here," she said, wiping her own eyes. "Max has been the best friend I could ever ask for." The group settled into the backyard, sharing stories about Max and reminiscing about the memories they all held dear. Ella learned that the Hendersons had moved away due to a job opportunity but had never stopped thinking about Max. They explained how they had searched for him after the move, only to find out he had been adopted by her family. As they laughed and shared memories, Ella felt a warmth spread through her heart. This wasn't just about Max, it was about love and connection. She realized how important it was to honor the past while also embracing the present. After a while, Ella stood up. "I have something for you," she exclaimed, rushing inside. She returned with the rusted box she had found earlier. "I discovered this when Max was digging." "It belonged to you, right?" The Henderson family exchanged glances, their eyes widening with surprise. The young girl took the box and opened it slowly. As she examined the contents, a smile spread across her face. "I remember these," she said, holding up the collar. "This was his collar before we had to give him up." The reunion continued, filled with laughter, shared memories, and even a few tears. Ella felt a sense of closure and fulfillment. This was the moment she had longed for, the understanding that Max's past and present were intertwined in a beautiful way. As the sun set and the sky turned a brilliant orange, Ella knew this day would forever hold a special place in her heart. She glanced at Max, who was happily surrounded by both families, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. In this moment, she understood that love transcended time and distance, and Max would always be the bridge that connected their two worlds. Days passed after Ella's heartfelt decision to reach out to the family that once owned Max. She spent countless hours poring over the letters she had received, tracing the words with her fingers, and imagining how it would feel to finally reunite Max with his previous family. Each day brought a new wave of emotions, excitement, anxiety, and a longing to understand the bond that had existed before her. Ella had carefully planned the Max Appreciation Day, envisioning it as a day of joy and love. She wanted everything to be perfect. She decorated the backyard with colorful balloons and streamers, crafting a large banner that read, "Max Appreciation Day." It was a celebration not just for Max, but for the connection he had shared with the family that loved him before her. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a reunion, it was a moment of healing for everyone involved. The day finally arrived, and Ella woke early, her heart fluttering with anticipation. As the sun began to rise, she could hear the chirping of birds outside her window, and she felt an overwhelming sense of hope. After breakfast, she helped her parents set up the backyard, arranging tables, laying out treats, and preparing a space for the family to feel welcomed. Her parents, seeing her excitement, worked diligently by her side, knowing how much this meant to her. As the morning turned to afternoon, the sky turned a brilliant blue, and the warmth of the sun felt comforting. Ella checked the time repeatedly, anxiously waiting for the moment when she would see the family arrive. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, but she remained optimistic. She kept reminding herself that this was an important step not only for Max, but also for the girl in the photos who had once loved him deeply. Finally, just as Ella was beginning to feel a mix of hope and worry, she spotted a car pulling into the driveway. Her heart raced as she ran to the front yard to greet them. The vehicle stopped, and the door swung open. Out stepped a young girl, Lily, the girl from the pictures, now a teenager. She hesitated for a moment, looking around as if searching for someone. Behind her were her parents, who stepped out of the car with smiles that quickly turned to expressions of surprise. "Is that Max?" Lily gasped, her eyes lighting up as she spotted the golden retriever, who was wagging his tail furiously and bounding toward her. Ella stood a few steps back, watching the reunion unfold, her heart swelling with emotion. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when Max would reconnect with a part of his past. Max dashed toward Lily, his energy contagious. As he reached her, he jumped up, licking her face, tail wagging wildly. "Oh, Max! I can't believe it's really you." Lily exclaimed, kneeling down to hug the dog tightly. The bond between them, though years apart, felt as if it had never faded. Tears streamed down Lily's face as she held Max close. Ella couldn't help but smile, her own eyes glistening with tears of joy. This was more than just a reunion, it was a reconnection of love that had stood the test of time. "Thank you for bringing us here," Lily's mother said, stepping forward to embrace Ella. "You have no idea what this means to us." "I just thought Max deserved to see you again," Ella replied, her voice shaky but filled with sincerity. "He loved you so much, and I know he missed you." As they all gathered in the backyard, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and nostalgia. The afternoon sun warmed their faces, creating a perfect backdrop for the stories that would soon unfold. Ella listened intently as Lily shared her favorite memories of Max, recounting how he used to play in their backyard, chasing after tennis balls and sleeping at the foot of her bed. Ella felt a sense of unity forming between the two families. They exchanged stories about their experiences with Max, how he had impacted their lives, and how special he had been to each of them. In those moments, it became clear that Max was not just a pet, he was a bridge connecting their two families. As the day went on, they set up a small picnic area with treats and refreshments. Max, of course, was showered with affection and snacks from both families. The reunion was filled with joy, laughter, and a shared love for a dog who had brought them together in ways they had never imagined. After the food, Ella gathered everyone around for a small speech. She took a deep breath, feeling the importance of what she was about to say. "I wanted to create this day not only to celebrate Max, but also to honor the love you all had for him. He is a part of both our families, and I believe that no matter how much time has passed, that bond will always remain." As Ella spoke, she could see the smiles on everyone's faces. The heartfelt connection they shared in that moment was palpable. "Thank you for coming and for sharing your memories with us. I know Max is so happy to be with you again." With the speech concluded, the atmosphere shifted to a more reflective tone. Lily's mother wiped away a tear, her emotions clearly stirred. "It's hard to believe we had to leave him behind. We loved him so much, but circumstances made it impossible to take him with us. Hearing stories of how he has been loved and cared for means the world to us." Lily added, "I thought about him all the time. I hoped he found a good home, and now I see he's not just in a good home, he's with you, Ella, and your family. I can't thank you enough." As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the backyard, Ella watched as Max lay down contentedly among them, soaking up the love from both families. She realized that this was the culmination of everything she had hoped for, a reunion filled with love, connection, and healing. But just as the joy reached its peak, something unexpected happened. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. As they were all gathered, Ella noticed a figure approaching from the end of the street. It was a man, walking slowly with a familiar gait. Her heart sank as she recognized him. It was the man from the photographs, the one who had once loved Max as a child. The shock of seeing him brought an abrupt halt to the lively chatter. "Is that—" Lily began, her voice trailing off in disbelief. The moment hung heavy in the air as the man stepped closer, his eyes locking onto Max. Max's head shot up, ears perking at the sound of a familiar voice. "Max! It's me, Danny," the man called out, his voice trembling with emotion. Ella felt the world shift around her as they all processed what was happening. The reunion was about to take another turn, one that no one had anticipated. Ella felt a mix of excitement and anxiety, unsure of what this would mean for their day of celebration. Max stood up, recognizing the voice, and began to trot toward Danny, tail wagging cautiously. Ella watched, breath held, as the two families stood frozen, absorbing the reality of this moment. What would Danny say? How would Lily react? Would this change everything they had just built? In that instant, all eyes were on the golden retriever and the young man who had once held his heart. The reunion wasn't over yet, it was evolving into something even more profound. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell.